Good afternoon. Welcome to NYNJPA Weather, your weather source for the Northern Mid-Atlantic. I'm meteorologist Stephen DiMartino. And I know what everyone wants to know. Is this storm going to happen? And if not, why not? Well, let's take a look at the latest data, and I'm going to discuss what the models are showing right now. Well, here we have the water vapor satellite picture, and you can see our very strong disturbance over the southwest is trucking along and will be into the southern plains by tonight. And then we have our strong polar disturbance that is over the northern Rockies, and then our Arctic disturbance that is over the Canadian plains. Now, the setup that we see here is very similar to what all the model guidance was showing leading up to this time period. So far, everything's in line for the potential for a major storm. But what have I been saying for the past several days? This storm will depend on the perfect phasing of all of these features, all these disturbances interacting in just the right way to produce a major winter storm. And yes, the European model guidance was showing that. And the European model guidance is probably one of the better model guidance you could use for mid-range forecasting. So what exactly is happening here, and why are all the solutions now out to sea? Well, there are several reasons why the model guidance is changing to a more easterly track and more out to sea. I'm going to focus on one specific feature. This is the 12Z 500 millibar observations. Notice that again we have a rather strong and dynamic subtropical disturbance moving through the southwest. We have our polar vortex over, or should I say, the upper level low in the Gulf of Alaska, staying in the Gulf of Alaska, allowing a large ridge to develop out west, which should support the potential for a major winter storm. But we have a few features that are a little bit different. Our upper level low over the Atlantic is a little bit more strung out, and because of that, it alters the flow of the atmosphere just a little bit. And also notice we have a much stronger disturbance up by Greenland that is having some impacts on the way that the entire atmosphere develops. Sometimes it's the little tiny tweaks that can influence a forecast and change a forecast from a major snowstorm to nothing at all. So here's 500 millibars on Christmas morning on the European model guidance. Again, we have our three disturbances, 1, 2, 3. But notice our subtropical disturbance is far weaker. The reason why is not because the models are handling this situation wrong as far as the strength of the disturbance initially. The problem here is that disturbance number 2, the polar disturbance, is moving slightly faster. Now, when you have a slightly faster moving disturbance in the polar jet stream as opposed to subtropical jet stream, what you end up with is a shearing effect. When you have shearing of these disturbances, the disturbances weaken. And when they weaken, you do not have a phase, you have basically nothing as far as storm development along the southeast coast. The whole development of the storm is delayed. So instead of this disturbance over the southern plains being robust and starting to interact with the polar jet stream, and then you get a large storm, because of a slight increase in the polar jet stream winds for disturbance number 2, this whole storm situation collapses. Again, it's a very fragile forecast, and quite frankly, it could change back. But I don't expect it to, but I wanted to throw it out there. So when we move forward, you can see what happens. The phase is not nearly as impressive as what we saw earlier on this week. In fact, because the whole phase is delayed, you could already see disturbances on the west coast starting to push the ridge further to the east. And because of that ridge moving further to the east and the delay in the full phase of the system, this whole storm has no choice but to be further east. The track has to be further east because of the setup of the dynamics in place. Now, if this phase was happening faster and in a much more dynamic fashion, like the model guidance was showing a few days ago, then this would be a totally different setup. But it's not, so far. Now, I throw out the caveat so far because we still do not have a complete handle on these disturbances over Canada and the higher latitudes. And so we have to be aware of a little bit of a pushback in the model guidance, not because the models are controlling the weather. No, it's not like that at all. The reason why we have to be cautious is that a slight decrease in these polar jet streams and the way they're being handled on the model guidance would again produce a totally different solution. So my suggestion right now is to wait. I'm going to adjust the forecast a little bit, include more of a scattered shower or snow shower reference to the forecast for now, rather than just plain snow. If you're looking for accumulating snow, your best shot is probably going to be eastern Long Island and the immediate New Jersey coast. But even along the New Jersey coast, if taking the model guidance verbatim, you end up with nothing. Not a zip zilch. That's it. That's all she wrote. And the reason why, again, is because the phase is too late. If the phase happens early enough, because of other factors enhancing the potential for the phase, then we have a major storm. Right now, that doesn't look so good. So clearly we are dealing with a rather tricky forecast here going forward. Right now, I think the threat for a major winter storm is greatly diminished, however, not completely dead, and we're going to have to see exactly how these disturbances interact over the next 12 to 24 hours. And the next set of model runs at 0Z should shed some light on exactly what to expect going forward. But right now, I would say that your Christmas vacation is looking relatively quiet. I'm meteorologist Stephen DiMartino. Thank you for choosing NYNJPA Weather as your weather source for the Northern Mid-Atlantic. Have an excellent weekend.